Let me start the recording. Okay. So I am going to go over just a couple of things with everybody real quick. So we are doing this presentation today, and we're super excited to have Pooja do this for us. We are going to be keeping everyone's mics muted just so we don't get any weird feedback in the recording, but Pooja is going to go over information and then have like question answer time. So you guys, as she's going through things, if you will go ahead and write down those questions, so that you can be really engaged, that'd be awesome. I'm going to be putting the handouts in the chat portion of this. So as Pooja is referencing something, I'm going to upload it into the chat section. It's the same handouts that you guys were all emailed this morning. And then I am also recording this so we can upload it into the learning place so that you guys can go back and re-look into it and refer to it later. So I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Pooja.
Hi guys.
There we go.
I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty getting into my Dropbox on my personal computer. Okay, so first I just want to check in to kind of see how everyone's doing. How's everyone doing with working from home?
Good.
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 I say it's a short commute. I go from an hour to 5 minutes through that door over there.
I know several of you guys don't have video on. Okay, slowly but surely we're getting video. There we go. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm going to get started. As far as referencing documents, that might be a little bit difficult for me because I'm trying to, you know what, let me see if I can switch my setup and access Zoom through my personal computer, and then I can use my work computer instead of trying to look at my documents on my personal computer. So 1 second. Let me see that email.
Yes.
Make these links so long.
They always are.
And like sometimes our email's slow, so I don't want to email it to myself because it may not work. Oh, nope, didn't work. Great. Okay, well, I'm just going to carry on. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is that you know, things are a little bit different right now because of the state of disaster. So, you know, as everyone knows, everything's just kind of a little bit awkward and strange right now. And that awkwardness and strangeness is in some way spilling over into the court system, but not as much as you would expect. So I have an agenda that I gave out to you guys. So I'm pretty much going to be following that agenda after I get through every section, then I'll give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. So the first part is that Legal Aid of Northwest Texas is still continuing to work. We're open for business. We're conducting intakes, we're taking cases, we're filing cases with the courts. We're doing everything pretty much as we would do even if we weren't having the restrictions that we have currently with the stay-at-home orders. But there are some differences in the ways that we're working. And the difference is that, you know, the main office for Legal Aid of Northwest Texas is closed to the public. It's going to be closed to the public until May 1st, and all of the staff is working from home. But, you know, we all have the capability of accessing everything that we would access at work from home. And, you know, there's really not a big change in the work that we're doing. We're still working our normal schedules. We're still available for all of our clients. And we're still available to receive referrals. Sometimes, you know, individuals may go into the office in a staggered schedule just to, you know, pick up documents that they may need, or, you know, conduct a hearing from their office instead of conducting a hearing from home where they may have some distractions. And we're just staggering our schedule. And the reason behind this is just to prevent person-to-person contact and prevent the spread of the virus. We, like I said, as of this time, it's May 1st, but it could get extended. We're just the organization is closely watching everyone's recommendations. And we're just following whatever recommendations the CDC and, you know, the city and state governments are providing in deciding how long we're going to be close to the public. One impact that this has is that we're not having clinics that we would normally have because we can't control the number of people that come to those clinics. So right now, we have taken the decision not to have them. But, you know, we're taking intakes and applications over the phone. There's a way to do that online. And specific to the family place, everything's normal. There's really nothing from your perspective that's going to be different in regards to how we receive referrals and how we conduct our intake. So there's a referral form that everyone should have, and you use that referral form, you complete it, and you send it to Elisa, who then, you know, gathers the information that she needs, and sometimes conducts an intake or schedules an intake appointment with me for whatever legal services the person is needing. I do want to touch on a couple of different things for the intakes, just things that are recurring themes, just to refresh your memory. So whenever you're sending an intake, if you're able to send an intake over to us, the form does have to be completed, and it has to go to Elisa. So, and it has to be completed for every legal service they're wanting. So for example, if they want assistance with a housing issue, but they also want assistance with a family law issue, then we would typically need 2 different forms, one specific to each issue that they're needing assistance with. And please make sure that the contact information that you write down on the forms is correct. If it's like, you know, 1 digit's off or transposed or something like that, it can create an issue with us needing to reach out to them and not being able to get in touch with them. Another thing is, I do want to encourage you all, whenever you are sending a referral, please make sure that the referral that you're sending is being sent because the client wants the referral to be sent. Every once in a while, we have referrals that we receive where the client is not seeking legal services. And it kind of baffles us as to why we receive it. And I understand that, you know, in the line of work that you do and the line of work that I do, we love to be able to get, you know, people whatever they need. But because of the nature of individuals that we deal with at the family place, if they're not really ready to seek legal services, I personally feel that it's detrimental to them for a referral to be sent, because if they're getting information about the legal process and they're not ready to receive that information, it may, you know, it may stress them out, and it may make them less likely to seek legal services in the future. And the second part of it is that it does kind of clog or flood our intake procedure, and it just prevents us from being able to spend more time on individuals that really want the help. And so I just want you guys to keep that in mind whenever you are sending referrals. Elisa is still going to work every day, and she's still there, her normal hours. So you should not have any issue getting in touch with Elisa either by email or by phone if you have additional questions. I'm currently working from home, but I'm available during business hours. And if you call my phone and leave a voicemail, I do check that at least once a day, but usually periodically throughout the day. So that's my first little section. So I just wanted to open it up to you guys to see if you have any questions. I can't hear whoever's talking.
Pooja, can you hear me?
Yes.
I know one of the things that you had talked about was that you are not receiving the same number of referrals as before. And I guess I want to ask the staff, what is different now with
Hello, con el
in
señor
the
Elmer.
programs as far as giving you
Don Elmer,
referrals?
habla Caricia Coro, la muchacha que le mandó el mensaje.
What is different now within the programs that
Mire,
you're
yo-
not receiving referrals?
No,
Is it
no, no, va a
because
ser el
clients
próximo
are-
sábado.
Hang on, excuse me, if you're not, thank you. If you're not talking currently, please mute your mic, because it can be, you know, interfere with whatever we're trying to do here. And also another reason to keep your mic muted is because sometimes it starts like a feedback loop. So whenever you're hearing someone and it's coming out through your speakers, then it will create an echo. So just try to keep it on mute if you can, if you're not talking.
So did anyone who works in programs, did y'all hear my question? What is different? What does Pooja needs to know that's different within the programs that she's not receiving referrals? Is it because clients are coming in and out more, or clients have different needs, or what can she do when we think about our clients and their need for legal services that might be different now? Don't jump on it too fast, Abby.
I can speak a little bit just to the fact that we've had a lot of in and out clients recently, at least at Ann Moody, just because of the shelter at stay order. So we have seen that trend, but we added a script to Hotline to let them know what basically our new policies are right now regarding the shelter in place order, just to try to combat that so they know what they're getting into before they get here, because we have pretty strict guidelines right now when they can leave and things like that. That's the only thing I can think of, but I haven't heard of like people referring less.
I think from my end on like the non-residential side, I think there are just a lot of clients that aren't even thinking about asking, or they just assume, right, that like court, coronavirus, all this crazy stuff is going on, and so they just assume that nothing is happening, everything's on hold, and so they don't even necessarily think to ask. I mean, I'm being inundated with like intakes every day. Like last week I did 13 non-res intakes. This week I haven't even counted how many I've done, but I feel like I'm, busier than ever, even when I'm in the office. And one thing for me personally is I really try to prevent receiving those clients that maybe just aren't ready for legal services yet, or they're brand new to the family place, like really getting them established as our client first and getting that emotional readiness before I send a referral. So maybe that's where the delay is on my end, is I don't want to just like complete an intake with the client later that day, fill out the legal services referral, and then send it y'all's way, and then us not even be able to get a hold of them like a week later because they changed their mind, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's like a really good policy. We find that whenever individuals are somewhat established in counseling, they're more likely to have, I don't know, the term that's coming to mind is, I'm not trying to like, discount our clients or anything, but they're more likely to have a level head and be in the headspace that's required to go through the legal process and see it through. Because it is, going through the legal process in and of itself is so stressful. So especially when the trauma is so new and fresh, those are the individuals that I usually see where it can be very difficult to understand what their goals are, because they don't even know what their goals are. And it can also be difficult to move through the court process because they're just not ready to do it. But I appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense, that if you're, getting a lot of new intakes, you're not really sure at this point if they're committed. I can speak to the fact that courts are open, and in some way it may even be advantageous for certain individuals to go ahead and initiate a legal action right now, for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is because, if there's somebody that works 2 or 3 jobs and they're hard to pin down, but you know where they live, so service may be difficult because they're just kind of everywhere and they're never home. And maybe they work as a construction worker, so you don't know where they're going to be. Well, if they're going to be home in the evenings now because they can't be out and drinking or whatever they would normally be doing, hanging out with friends or family, then, right now it may be actually better and easier to serve them with paperwork, which is necessary to start any type of legal action. There are some difficulties with service right now, but I would just say that, if it needs to get done, it can get done. So some of the constables' offices aren't really serving as much as they would previously. But then the family place has resources to private process servers that we can utilize to make sure that that happens. Another benefit is, because these hearings are being conducted by Zoom, sometimes, someone may not want to appear by Zoom. I don't know. So that could be different, or it just may make it easier for the court to move along where, the case to move along where someone may not appear for a hearing, but then they would appear for a Zoom hearing because it's easier for them. And then, we can go ahead and have the case move along faster than it would normally. Does anyone else have any feedback on maybe the difference in referrals? It's not that we're not receiving any, we're just not receiving as much as we anticipated, because all the news outlets and all the media, everyone's saying that, there's going to be a surge in domestic violence because everyone's at home, which I agree with, but I'm just trying to understand the reason that, if there is a surge, or if more people are trying to, take action or whatever, why we're not seeing a higher number of referrals. Does anyone else have any feedback?
Well, I just have something kind of interesting to say. So, because I get the family violence reports, the high risk ones, on a daily basis. So don't quote me on this, but for the last month, we have the detective that I work with, we have seen a decrease in family violence cases overall. I don't know how that's compared to the hotline and victims reaching out for services. But as far as family violence, victims making police reports, there has been a decrease. And we compare the numbers from last February until April, like today, to now. So it's just been like a slight decrease. We haven't seen an increase, which is good and bad, because we don't know if it's like stopping or people are just afraid to call 911. So it's interesting that you kind of like say that too, that you really haven't seen like too many cases or as much as like anticipated. Because in the news, the media, they are saying that people are calling, there's domestic violence is happening now more than ever. But as far as just like, at least like the police report side, the Dallas police only, we have seen like a decrease in cases. So I thought that was just kind of interesting, and I wanted to share. That's something that we're still monitoring on a daily basis.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that perspective. Is there anyone that has any input?
I have a little input about hotline. We actually experienced the same thing. We were anticipating more calls because of everything going on, but we have not had more calls. I would say it's like the same, if not less numbers than we usually have. So I don't know if it's because abusers are home more, they don't have the opportunity to call, or what's going on, but we've kind of experienced the same thing that you were talking about, Daniela.
Yeah, that's all very interesting.
Thank you for that feedback, Abby. Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, well, do you think?
Hello,
Yes.
this is Teresa.
Hi, Teresa. We can hear you.
Okay, all right. I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago about the less calls coming in as Homeland Security. They are experiencing the same, and they kind of question on. And my thought on this is that when everything is shut down, victims may be thinking, well, can I get help? How can I get help? And I said, maybe that's when we need to use social media, security, and our organizations and other people work on. I truly do believe that the numbers of DV has tremendously increased. So it has a fear factor, not fear factor that maybe help is not available. How do you do that? And am I catching COVID-19, the virus? I don't know, because I thought it's really, these calls are not coming in. And when you look at Homeland Security, government, it makes you question, what else do we need to do?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. There definitely is some disconnect, and that's kind of why I wanted to have this training, so that at least if you guys could properly relate to individuals, what are the changes? How is it really changed, and how is it really impacted? So that they can understand that they don't have less rights or less of an ability to do what they need to do, and they can still, get a protective order, they can still file a divorce, they can still do all those things that they need to do. Does anyone else have any type of feedback for that topic? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next topic then. But if you have a question that you remember later, just go ahead and stop me wherever I'm talking, or go ahead and wait until the end of the next section. So there is limited access to family courts right now, but cases are still moving along. So I think the fact that, people are thinking that the courthouse is closed and all this other stuff and whatever's being put out in the news, that's not necessarily correct. All of the family courts are still accepting new cases, new filings, hearings are being set, trials are being heard. The only difference is that a majority of the hearings are being conducted by Zoom, with the exception that there are some courts that are preferring to still hold protective order hearings in person. But it's a preference, and there are, certain protocol that are in place whenever there is a hearing in person. I attended one last week, And the protocol that's in place for that is that, you know, they're encouraging social distancing, they're cleaning everything before and after the hearing, you know, they're preventing people from trading papers and things like that. So there are certain safety measures that are being put into place. Most of the time, though, you still have an option to conduct a hearing virtually, even if it is for a protective order case. And it's really going to depend on the case and the judge just to see if that's something that's worth happening. Also, even though access is kind of limited, the courts are, I mean, like I said earlier, we're having all types of hearings, including trials. So for the most part, everything's just running as normal, or there's an attempt to keep everything as normal as possible, with the exception that we're just not doing as much in person. And the only significant change is that for certain types of hearings, it may be more difficult or may take longer to have a hearing than it would normally. And the other thing is that if we're trying to finalize a case where the other party has not responded or appeared or anything like that, it's taking longer to obtain a default judgment against the other person, because some courts are not signing orders in default at all, and some courts have a different procedure that requires additional steps in order to get that done. So again, that's kind of on a case-by-case basis. But that's really the only significant impact. So does anyone have any specific questions in regards to how the courts are functioning, or what's happening in the court system, or anything like that?
Do you think that there's going to be more like pleas taken during this time instead of like trying to avoid like trial?
So I don't really work right now in the criminal realm, but as far as that stuff, as far as I understand with what's happening at the Dallas County DA's office, it's probably less likely that there would be pleas entered. Most cases are just going to be continue to get passed. I would imagine that if a defendant is being adamant and that they want to plea, I'm sure there's procedures in place for them to get that done. I know there are some additional concerns in regards to the criminal courthouse, because people at the criminal courthouse and at the jail have tested positive for COVID-19. So I'm not sure you know, how many hearings or things that they're, you know, conducting. For example, you know, the court that typically holds protective order hearings at the DA's office is closed, and it has been closed. The one at the criminal courthouse. But the last, and this information is changing daily, so I don't want you to take it as like law, or it's not black and white, because the last communication legal aid had with the DA's office is that they're trying to get it back open so that they can still continue to have some hearings for protective orders, even if it's less than they normally would have. My understanding is that the DA's office has a protective order unit at the family courthouse, and that's continuing to run normally. Or at least that they're still taking applications and filing cases. But that's another reason, you know, if there's a case that you would normally, you know, send over to the DA's office for a protective order, this is a great time to send it over to legal aid, because, you know, part of the concern from what I know with the DA's office is that they're limited to only using the constables for service. And so a lot of constables' offices are not serving any citations or pleadings at all. My understanding, I mean, at least with some precincts, Dallas County is serving protective order cases. But, you know, it just may be easier for as to serve somebody with a private process server, and legal aid and the family place have access to private process servers, so that they may be able to get protection quicker. And this is especially important for protective order cases, because the whole reason we have all these abilities in protective order cases is because there's an immediate need most of the time for some type of protection. So we don't want individuals to just wait, and say, oh, the courts aren't open, or, oh, it's a little bit more difficult, or, well, I have a criminal case pending where I'm the victim, I really want to go through the DA's office. No, it's probably in their best interest that they get a protective order as soon as possible if it's something that they need, especially because like Ms. Little said that, right now, there's probably an increased risk of family violence happening. And as some people mentioned, there may be a higher likelihood that the individuals don't want to report it to the police because they don't think that anything's going to happen right now. So I mean, that's a really long answer to your question with a lot more information. But does anyone have any other questions about how the courts are functioning?
I was just going to say that's super helpful, because I've oftentimes have not sent protective order legal referrals just for that same reason. I just send them to the DA's office at Frank Crowley, and not that their process is super fast or whatever, but it's at least faster. The last I heard from a client was that they're doing like phone intakes still, but not letting anyone come into the building at all. But like you said, that could have changed on the daily or hourly basis. So, but thank you. You're going to be getting at least like 3 referrals from me then, now that I know that. So.
Yeah, so like generally speaking, protective orders it's a really quick process. And so, there's really no difference, procedurally with going with the DA's office versus going with legal aid. The only difference that I would say, generally speaking, is that with the DA's office, they have forms. They just use the same form for the most part. They sometimes write stuff in. And, with legal aid or any type of civil attorney, whenever you're going forward for a protective order, it is really tailored to the needs of that person. So you're going to get, different protection if that's necessary. In different ways. I don't want to go through all the differences, but there just may be a slightly higher protection that would be possible, or more specific protection that can be outlined in a protective order if it's something that a civil attorney drafts versus going through the DA's office and using their form. Their form's great. I don't have any problems with it. It just isn't as easy to change or make, tailor to that person. And they, they're great. I mean, I'm so glad that they have the ability to, work towards a protective order for individuals that need it, because it also helps if you send someone to the DA's office for a protective order before they're ready to get divorced, that's eventually anyways going to help their divorce case. So if they're ready to focus on that, then go ahead and send them, whether it's to the DA's office or to legal aid, it doesn't matter. So. Okay, well, if no one else has questions about that topic, I'm going to go ahead and move on to this next topic. So Zoom hearings, virtual hearings, I kind of want to talk about how these work, so that if you have a client or someone that needs to prepare for a Zoom hearing, you can give them some good information. People are able to access Zoom either through their cell phones if they have a smartphone, or by the computer. If they don't have a smartphone, there isn't a way that they can just call in, but most courts do not prefer that. They want to be able to see the person. So another requirement generally across the courts is that each individual attending a hearing needs to appear using their own device. So like if I had a witness, they can't sit next to me and then we're having a hearing. That the courts are not allowing that. In fact, you know, most witnesses should be in a different room as well. So you should be able to have the hearing or participate without any type of interaction from another person that may be attending or from, you know, something around you. I highly recommend that audio and video capabilities are tested prior to the hearing. So in the hearings that I've had 2 up to this point through Zoom. And I just, you know, kind of make sure before the hearing that they're able to use the software and that they're able to see and hear me and vice versa, that I can see and hear them. I think that's really important. There are possibly some confidentiality concerns with Zoom. So obviously you don't want to be talking to them about a lot of sensitive stuff, like as if it was a meeting between you two on Zoom. That confidentiality is not really a concern for a court hearing because the court hearings are generally public anyways. So they don't have the same concerns. In fact, some of the court hearings are actually broadcasted live on YouTube. It just depends on the court and whatever their decision is. So you'll be able to view the hearings as they're happening. And the intention is that as soon as the hearing's done, that that hearing is deleted, like it's no longer available. You can no longer view the video, it's not recorded or anything like that. Whenever you're attending the hearing, whether it's you or a client, you should not be reading off of a script. You should not be reading off of your notes. You should be attending the hearing just like as if you were in court. You should dress as if you were going to court. You should also, you know, if there's any type of technical difficulty during the hearing, courts are being pretty understanding right now. So if we need to reset it for a later date, then usually in my experience, courts are being pretty understanding about allowing the hearing to be reset. Because they prefer that, like, for example, if someone can't get the video working, they're gonna prefer that they can see the person instead of just hear them. Something that is important to maybe the difference between criminal and civil cases is that in a criminal case, you do have a right to confront the witnesses against you under the Confrontation Clause of the United States Constitution, but you don't have that right under civil cases. So, you know, a judge may decide, well, I don't care if I can't see them, I can hear them, we're fine, we're gonna go on with this hearing. That would be fine. All of the evidence that people are going to provide at a hearing usually needs to be provided on average about 24 hours in advance. So I know a lot of my clients typically take documents with them to court, and that's great. If that's something that you advise them to do, I would continue to advise them to do that. But for this circumstance, with everything that's happening right now, you really, they really need to get those documents to me or their lawyer that's representing them, like probably a day or two in advance so that they can properly get them over to the court. Because we have to send all of our evidence to the court before the hearing. The court is going to have the ability to put everyone on mute. So if you need to ask, just raise your hand. And then there is a chat feature on Zoom, as some of you may know. It is discouraged that people, you know, use the chat feature to talk to witnesses or for the witnesses to talk to their attorneys because you don't want it to be any different from what happens in the courtroom. And although you may like pass notes and things in the courtroom, you don't do that while the person is testifying before the court. And then interpreters are still able to attend. So there's no difference or impact on people that do not speak English. They should have the same ability to continue to have court hearings as everybody else does. Does anyone have any questions about Zoom hearings or how those work? Okay. All right, so this next section about specific concerns for victims or survivors of domestic violence, that like these concerns were concerns that were outlined by the American Bar Association, and I just kind of wrote down the concerns and basically our possible response to those concerns. I didn't provide you the handout because it's not specific to Texas or Dallas. It's just the country as a whole having certain problems. And there weren't really solutions on the handout. So I didn't think it would be helpful for you guys in any way. It may have caused you to be more concerned than you needed to be. So I thought this was a better way to do it. Limited access to the judicial system is one of the concerns. That probably, like we have discussed during this training, that's probably a concern that the victims have. But actually, they should not have limited access to the judicial system because officers are still going to make arrests for violent offenses. And so if there is a domestic violence incident, I'm sure that officers are still going to go out and they're still going to make that arrest and do whatever they need to do. Secondly, we're still able to file all of our cases. We're still able to proceed with protective orders and obtain temporary ex parte protective orders. The DA's office is still issuing emergency protective orders at this time. And, we are able to do whatever we need to do as normal. So although the access may be different, it's not really significantly limited. Let's see. It may be more difficult right now for individuals to represent themselves. So if they were served with a divorce or something during this time period, or custody, like a custody case was initiated by the abuser, it's going to be more difficult than it normally would for them to represent themselves and navigate the court system on their own. So I would just encourage you guys, if you become aware of something like that happening, to just refer those people to legal services. So that's an attorney at Legal Aid can assist them. And I just want to remind you guys that Legal Aid does not just take family law cases. We take cases involving housing issues, involving, general civil litigation like contract disputes, employment law, other things like that. So we're going to go over those things later, but if there's something else that's a civil legal need that one of your clients needs, then I would encourage you to, refer those to us, and then we can screen them and send it along to the appropriate Department of Legal Aid of Northwest Texas. So one of the concerns that the handout outlined is that some jurisdictions may be releasing nonviolent offenders. I don't know that that is necessarily occurring in Dallas County. But I'm sure you guys know this, but there's a system called Vine in which the victims can access information about, the location of individuals if they're in custody, and they can set up notifications for themselves to be notified if the person is transferred or moved. The only time that this does not apply is for immigration. So if someone's in immigration custody, there's a different way to look that up. And you're not really going to be notified if they're transferred or moved necessarily. We did talk about the fact that there may be a higher risk of violence right now. There's also a higher chance of abusers using visitation as an excuse to manipulate the victim or the survivor. This is something that I'm seeing in my practice both ways. I'm seeing our clients use coronavirus as an excuse to not follow the visitation orders. I'm also seeing abusers use the visitation orders as a means to continue the cycle of violence or the non-physical abuse with clients. So right now, you guys should be aware that there have been emergency orders that have been put in place by the Supreme Court of Texas. Some of these orders are specific to visitation. It's the 2nd and the 7th emergency order. That was included in the handouts that you received. But I'm going to summarize those for you. The second emergency order, let me pull it up to make sure I'm not misstating it. But the second emergency order stated that visitation is going to continue despite whatever's going on with the coronavirus. So, and whenever schools are closed because of the pandemic, which has been happening, the parties are still going to continue to follow the school schedule. And this is important because most of the visitation orders actually refer to this when the child gets out of school, when the child has spring break and things like that. So they're just going to use whatever Dallas County or whatever county's calendar was before the school closed. So no one's rights are really going to be affected. They're still going to be able to get their visitation time as they would if this pandemic was not ongoing and if the schools were not out of session right now. Then the 7th emergency order states that possession of and access to a child shall not be affected by a shelter-in-place order or other order restricting movement issued by a governmental entity that arises from the epidemic or pandemic. So what that means to me is that you need to go ahead and follow whatever your possession order is. And, it's not going to be affected by what's going on. If there's closures, if you're supposed to stay home, people still have their rights to visit with and see their children. And I know, at least last I heard, I think, FLP is continuing to serve individuals and continuing to allow visitation with some restrictions in regards to the number of people that are there at one time, where people are. So maybe people would be, have to stay in a certain area so that everyone can be separated. And there's certain health screening that's occurring. They are checking temperatures and things like that to make sure that sick people aren't coming. And I kind of would like to know, I know I'm going to open this up to questions, but if you guys have seen a change in visitation. I also want to point out that the way that this order reads, it basically, let's say FLP is closed. Well, that doesn't all of a sudden mean that the abuser, if the abuser on the other side, the father or the mother, is entitled to unsupervised visitation. The order still needs to be followed. And so the parties are able to come to agreements outside of the order, but they don't need to. So if there is severe abuse going on and FLP does not have the availability or is closed, well, it's just like if someone's on a waiting list for FLP, they don't get to have visitation. And that's a very unfortunate consequence, but that's just, I'm stating it in that way for the protection of our clients. We don't want them to feel like they have to agree to visitation outside of the order, because this emergency order specifically says that it doesn't matter. Your current order stays in place. It does also say, though, that nothing prevents them from having, from altering it and coming to some type of an agreement. If people are going to do what they want. I mean, mothers feel like fathers are entitled to see their kids. I mean, I've heard a lot of different excuses as to why, and reasons as to why someone feels obligated to allow access to a child, even if it's putting them at risk. I would just encourage you to advise your clients that if they're going to agree to anything outside of the order, that they put everything in writing. And that's like, if you're, let's say FLP is where you have to do visitation, but you're like, okay, you know what, like, because of what's going on, if your mom's over at your house while you have the kids, like, I'm okay with that. But it's not that easy. Like, you want to have, when are you going to get them? How are they going to get there? Who's going to drive them? When are they going to be picked up? When, like, who's going to be supervising? Is that person going to be there the whole time? You know, like, you really want to have in writing all of the circumstances around that agreement. Sometimes what I see happen is that, you know, clients will say, okay, yeah, that's fine. You can't pick, you know, you have visitation, for example, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. And let's say this is unsupervised. Well, oh, you actually can't pick them up till noon. That's fine. I'm okay with that. So I'll meet you at noon. So they go exchange the child at noon and never discuss when they're going to get the child back. And so at 4, they're like, hey, are you going to be there at 4? And the person's like, no, I can't get there until 8. And you're like, because then you're kind of SOL, because you have your child and you never had an agreement and you're not complying with the order. So even if the coronavirus wasn't happening, if you call the cops, they're gonna be like, this is a custody issue, I'm sorry. In that circumstance, the cops are absolutely right. They can't intervene because there's no clear violation of anything, because you allowed him to have this child and you didn't establish when he had to bring him back. For that reason, also, I really do always advise you guys to encourage individuals to follow their order. There's a reason that their order is what it is. So it's in their best interest to always follow whatever the order says. They're gonna do the least amount of harm to themselves or their children if they just follow whatever it is, because you have the most ability to fight whatever happens that's against the order if it's very clear and in writing. When you start changing what you're going to do, then it makes it harder to say, oh, this person didn't do what they were supposed to, for, you know, a criminal penalty or not. And also, you guys should be aware that interference with custody is a crime. Whether or not officers arrest or do whatever they need to do in regards to that, it's a crime. And I understand when officers are like, okay, no one's in danger, nothing really bad is happening, and, you know, he's just 2 hours late. I don't really see the point in arresting him. I get that. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's a crime, and the individuals can still go and file police reports for it. Let me look at my agenda to see if that was all I was going to say about that topic. The other issue that was presented is that virtual hearings may make somebody less likely to want to testify, especially when some hearings are being broadcasted worldwide on the internet. Honestly, I feel like individuals are more protected, but obviously we're going to have individuals that are, you know, have stage fright or don't like talking on the phone, don't like being on video, and you do have to somewhat stare at yourself when you're talking. So, you know, there are things that maybe you guys could do to prepare them for that and explain to them, like, well, this is an opportunity for you to go to, you know, handle your court case without having to physically be in the same room as, you know, the person that has abused you. And even though you have, you know, even though you're attending on Zoom, there's no requirements that you have to look at the person that's talking. So if he is saying something, you don't have to look at him. You don't have to focus on him at all, which is a similar thing as to what I say in court. That's the end of that section. Does anyone have any questions about that section? A lot of people shaking their head no. So okay. I saw someone's audio connecting and didn't know if they were going to try to say something. So, okay, the next part is the CARES Act. You have a handout in the handouts that you received regarding the CARES Act. I believe there's a handout that's just generally about the CARES Act, and then there's information that's specific to how it impacts family law cases. Basically, the CARES Act has been passed, and everyone is going to be getting stimulus payments in the form of a check or a direct deposit. These stimulus payments are going to come directly to your account, and each individual is going to get $1,200 if they make an income of a gross income of $75,000 or less, and then you're going to be receiving $500 per child. In the instance where if individuals are in the middle of a divorce or if they're currently married, all of that money is going to be considered community property. It's just like as if you got a tax refund. You guys filed taxes together, you get money in a joint account, it's everyone's money. So it's going to be difficult if someone were to take all of it. It's going to be really difficult to say, oh, well, I need you to give me half of it back. The other part of that is that with the state of things going on right now, it's likely that you're going to be able to, it's not really likely that you're going to be able to do anything about that immediately, because again, the courts are only hearing or having a preference to hearing emergency hearings. You can set a hearing on this, but you have to do the analysis, or at least I would have to do the analysis if they're my client, to see whether or not it's really an emergency. Like, is this person not going to be able to pay rent and feed their children because they didn't receive the stimulus check? Then I may decide to go ahead and file something and go before the court right away. But if that's not the case, and it would just be extra money that they would receive, I probably wouldn't do that as quickly as I could if this stuff wasn't going on, because we kind of want to respect, the court's availability and the state of things right now. So even though you may normally be pretty ticked off about someone taking that money from you, it may not be the best time to present that information. Sorry, I just got an email update about the DA's office. Okay. The other thing is that if you have child support arrearages, then those arrearages, like that check is going to be subject to the child support arrearage. So they're going to take a portion of that check for anyone that has arrearages. Anyone that's currently getting their income garnished, they're going to have a portion of that check taken out. Do anyone have any questions about that? Okay, so COVID impacts on evictions. I really want to stress that this law is ever changing and everything that's happening is very new. So my intention was to give as accurate of information as I could provide, but it is only valid for today, like as of yesterday when I created this, okay, this outline. So as of yesterday, they passed a new Dallas County order by Judge Jenkins that advised the justices of the peace to stay evictions for at least 60 days. That they advise that happens, but it is not required. I have not heard of, nor am I aware of, any courts actually hearing eviction proceedings right now. So I don't think that anyone's doing that, but just something to be aware of, that they're advised to do that, but that doesn't mean that they cannot hear eviction proceedings. And that the thing that won't happen, and there's a handout about this too, but the thing that won't happen is that the last process, ordering someone to get out by a certain time, that's what's being delayed. I think everyone needs to understand and be able to explain and walk clients through the fact that they may still get eviction notices on their door. Those big orange stickers that say you have to be out, notice to vacate and all that. the date and time, you may still get that. The date and time may still be in whatever the old required time is. And I apologize, I don't work in this area of law. So if it was 30 days, it may say you have to get out in 30 days. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be afraid and feel like they have to move, because there's really not anything happening in regards to court proceedings. Well, may they still be liable for penalties and things like that and civil legal fees? Possibly. But I know if you can see on the handout that legal aid is hopeful that we'll have a good argument if someone is in dire need of shelter and they can't pay rent because they've been let go of their job because of the circumstances, that, you know, there's a reason that they did not vacate or did not, you know, leave their residence. There's also a suggestion that landlords cap the late fees at $15 a month. That's a suggestion. It's not a requirement. There's no order that happens. So, you know, if there's a lot of people that are out of work, and I know we're all fortunate that we continue to have work, but there's a lot of people that are either out of work or have reduced hours or are not getting paid as much as they used to. And, you know, landlords may be understanding, but there's nothing that's preventing them from charging late fees. Another thing to know is that even if a landlord, you know, says like, you don't have to pay rent, we're going to have a late fee of this much, whatever, until September or whenever they're going to make the decision to do it. You know, most of the time, if rent is not paid by whatever that end date is, then all those late fees and everything can be added on. So individuals that have an ability to pay, if they're thinking like, oh, I'm trying to save money, so I'm not paying rent because I don't have to right now, that's an incorrect understanding. If you have an ability to pay rent, you need to pay it, because it's going to bite you in the butt later if you're not doing it. So there are different protections for individuals under the CARES Act that is specific to individuals that may have a federally backed mortgage or a federally backed loan for their property. Housing or like multifamily units that have federally backed mortgages or units, or some places that are participating in federally funded programs like Section 8. So those protections are a little bit different. Under the CARES Act, late fees are suspended until they're calling it a period of forbearance, until the period of forbearance ends. I wasn't able to, you know, I have a copy of the CARES Act, but it's verbose. There's a lot of words. I wasn't able to see when exactly they're saying that this period's going to end, if they even said that there was a specific period. I think from a legal standpoint, everyone's trying to act quickly to put something in place, and they're not really focusing on specifics, because then they can do what like Judge Jenkins has done. You can always amend and change things as you need. So they're trying to protect people as fast as they can. And so, you know, there may not be anywhere in the CARES Act where it says when rent can be due again, or it may say something ambiguous like, you know, all payments are, the period of forbearance is for 3 months. Well, okay, from what day? Like, when did it begin? When did it end? Like I said, they're not really as concerned with those specifics because they just want to get protections out there. Does anyone have questions about that? Okay. The next section is employment law issues and rights. You guys have a handout about employment law issues and rights. I think it's pretty short. Just be aware that the victims do have rights if they were terminated. Right now, the turnaround time, the amount of time that it receives to actually receive a check for unemployment is a lot quicker. I think it's around 30 days than it would normally be. So I think that my understanding based on the training I attended is that it seems like the Texas Workforce Commission is erring on the side of like, let's cut a check for this person. They'll deal with the rest of it later, because so many people are in need of money. Like, so many people are out of work right now. I provided you guys some resources and handouts just that are general in nature. There's one in English and Spanish about resources in Dallas County. And in Dallas, that was issued by the city of Dallas. There's a handout about handling children while you're having to work from home, because I know that could be a big stressor for these parents that, you know, all of a sudden their kids are out there all the time, and they may be parents that have been working 2 or 3 jobs, and they may have lost one, and then all the kids are home and like no one's going to school, and it may be very stressful for them or even for you guys. So there's a handout about that there. There's also a handout about community resources as far as food pantries and food pantries and other locations that are offering food. I know I would encourage you guys, and I know it's hard because I just don't like following the news, so I really sympathize with you. But I know there are restaurants that are providing meals and stuff on occasion. For example, there was a Mexican restaurant in Dallas called Quintana's that opened yesterday and reopened, and they were giving out plates of food for families of 5 or more if you were out of work, out of a job, if you just needed money. So there may be resources like that out there for people that don't have the money or suddenly are out of a job, and you know, they just don't know what to do. I know the Family Place also offers resources and assistance with that, but there may be additional resources in the community that we can direct people to, especially, you know, I think there are also certain stores are having like food, like packages of meals, like for families. Like you can get like a whole chicken and like, you know, a vegetable on a side or whatever that could last you a couple days. So just to keep that in mind. Does anyone have any questions regarding anything that I addressed? I kind of want to put this out there to you guys. How do you think we could work together to, you know, continue to assist, I guess, like our area of service, like victims of domestic violence and people that are impacted by domestic violence? I know someone suggested that we can maybe put more information on Facebook so that people know, like, hey, we're still doing stuff. Like, we're still taking people, we're still providing counseling. Like, if you need help, please reach out. I'm sure, like, I will definitely relay back to, you know, management at Legal Aid that it would probably help if we put out information on our website, on our Facebook page about we're still here, we're still working. Like, if anyone needs help with any legal issue, then we're still able to assist you at this time. But is there anything else that you can think of that may also be helpful in reaching out to them, or any type of, I don't know, outlets that you think we could reach out to?
I would say, because I know that Emily and I do a lot of like our agency Facebook and LinkedIn and all of those things. I would encourage everybody, all of our posts are shareable from our agency page. And like we just posted a video of Paige talking through safety planning and going over that, you know, here's how you reach us, here's what we're doing right now. So I would encourage you guys go on there, like our pages and share it, because we're trying to put out a lot of that content. And your contact groups are very different than mine. So just a quick share, you may never know who that's going to impact. So that is available right now.
Anyone else can you guys think of anything else, any other ways that we could maybe get the word out there that we're still here? Because it is a concern. Like, I think Ms. Little pointed out that, you know, it's a concern that people are just facing this domestic violence at home, and that they're just, you know, dealing with it and not reaching out because they're afraid or they think that nothing's going to happen. So any ideas that you guys have would certainly be helpful. If you have, I mean, and no idea is a bad idea. So anything else that you guys can think of?
Well, as far as with, because I'm in communication often with the detectives in the police department, I mean, so they're aware that our services are still going. So, I mean, I could try to have like a conversation with them or send them like a massive email letting them know that every time they talk to a victim, just to mention like, hey, you know, the shelter is still open, like services are still available. Because when I was there in the office, I mean, all the detectives are pretty good about letting the victims know, like, hey, you know, well, if you need any help, reach out. These are the numbers to call the family place, or they'll refer like victims to me. So I could try, like, for my part of it is just be communication more with the detectives. Hey, like, just mention to the victims, like, hey, the services are still open, they're still available. There's a hotline 24/7. So maybe just that. For sure, I think will be helpful because I mean they're the main person in communication with the victims on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good thing to do. Anyone else have any ideas? I mean, I know really part of this for me was a way to show you guys that we're still able to do everything we need to do, and please send us referrals because, and I don't want you to worry like, oh my God, I just sent Pooja 10 referrals just for me. I mean, that's fine. It'll be stressful. It happens. I don't care because it's not just me that works on these cases. We have a whole firm and an entire unit that works on family law cases. So if I can't personally help with, you know, a case that comes in, doesn't mean that that case is just going to fall through. You know, it doesn't mean that they're not going to get any type of legal aid from us. It just means that, you know, we're busy right now, but, you know, we'll do everything we can for you. And when we have additional resources and attorneys that can help out. But I'm definitely going to talk about Facebook. And I appreciated everyone sharing all their experiences with the reduction in you know, police, like, arrests and reduction in police reports being made and reduction maybe like contact with individuals. I know, Amanda, you're having more contact with individuals. So at least that's a good sign. At least they're seeking help in some way, whatever way that they think they can. But anyone else have any thoughts or concerns? Did anyone have any questions about legal services in general?
I think you answered almost everything. You went through all the different topics that I even think about to ask. So you gave a lot of good information. So thank you.
All right, awesome, you guys. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, you know, you can always email me. I know I don't have a family place email, but I try to send out emails whenever I can. But if you don't have my email, it's pathak@landwt.org, LANWT.org. You can email me if you ever have any questions. You can also call me. Desiree just sent it on the chat. Thank you, Desiree. You can also call me on my office line. That phone is going directly to voicemail right now, just so it doesn't just ring incessantly. But please leave a voice message. Although I'm not at the office physically every day, I am checking my voicemail. So if you have a question and you call me and leave a voicemail, I'll get back to you. But the best way to communicate with me is going to be email. And, you know, because everything's changing, like something might change and you may have a question about something we went over that's no longer the same. And so I encourage you to reach out to me. I want to be as accessible to all of the staff members of the family place as I can be. And, you know, I'm here to answer any questions that I can. I can't give you legal advice. I think most of you know that by now. And I will not give you legal advice for an individual that's in front of you for a number of reasons that I'm not going to get into right now. But if that person has a legal question, we also provide legal advice. That's one of the services that we provide. So if you have an individual that's not ready for getting a divorce, but they're like, how does it work? I don't even know how it works. Like, you can ask them, would you want to speak to an attorney to get some information about what the process is for obtaining a divorce, what protections or what things you can obtain? That's a referral that you guys can send over to us. And frankly, I love those referrals, because that way they get the information that they need. And even if they're not ready at that time, they can have that information, keep it. So when they are ready, they can know that they have legal services or legal aid of Northwest Texas as a resource for them. And they've already established contact with us, so we'll have some of their information in our system. I also want to encourage you guys, if there's somebody that has like a case, like they came here to flee from domestic violence and they're trying to get away from an abuser, but they're from like Minnesota or something, I want to encourage you to go ahead and send those people to me, because I may be able to I am able to refer those cases to the other state, to legal aid in the other state, so that they can get assistance if it's not something I can handle. And I don't want to go through like all the specifics of like, if I can't, because it's very case specific. But I had a case recently where, due to timing, I could not help them right then. I also want you guys to know, this may come up, especially for counselors, maybe Vicki and Daniela. Oh, I've like this statement. Someone might say this. I've been to legal aid before. They didn't help me. They just sent me a letter. They just, they weren't able to do anything for me. I don't want them to feel like that doesn't mean that we will never help them. And this is something I tell people every day after I do an intake. If you are not able to get assistance now, that doesn't mean that we never will provide assistance. It's no reflection of your case, what's going on in your life, or how good your case is or anything like that, because legal aid works as like a triage. So, if Amanda sends me 5 protective order referrals tomorrow, then I may not be able to take all 5 of them, or I may not be able to take a simple divorce that comes along that I would be more than happy to take. And a simple divorce means no kids, no property. It doesn't mean that there's no domestic violence, but I may be able to take that normally, but I can't, because I just took these 5 protective order cases that I need to act quickly on. And so at this time, I can't help for that divorce. And so I'm going to give them as much information or advice or whatever I can give them. That doesn't mean that they should never come back to me, or they should feel like we don't want to help them. I certainly don't want anyone to have that thought. Or, sometimes people come and they didn't get the help that they wanted initially, so they think like, well, they're just not going to help. I would encourage you guys, or ask you guys, to please like walk them through that. It never hurts to try to seek help. And if you are able, you may be able to get assistance this time. You're not, you don't know. And if you want to get a divorce and you don't have the money to pay a private attorney, then why would you turn down this opportunity that you have to get help? Just because you got turned away initially, or another time. But that's really all I have for today. It was really nice to see everybody, because I never get to see you guys. I'm always busy. So I appreciate the guys that opened up their videos so I could see everyone, since I am like at home all the time. If anyone has any questions, again, please email me. I do want to, my intention for this year is to make this more of a collaborative environment between legal services and the family place. So I'm going to be bothering all of you guys a lot more. But if you have a thought, or, if you have a question about something, please reach out to me. And I hope you guys have a great day. Happy Friday.
Thank
Bye.
you, Pooja. Everybody, I'm going to put this webinar in the learning place probably by the end of tomorrow. So if you have any coworkers that need to take a peek at it, let them know. Just log in and it'll be hosted under the courses. So thank you guys, and I hope everyone has a good day.